Welcome to this latest edition of the Real Deal Podcast, The Wire Remixed, Season 3, Episode 6, Homecoming. This episode, of course, was directed by Leslie Liebman. It ranked 29th all time by Vulture, so Vulture really liked this episode. And, of course, the epigraph by one Avon Barksdale, just a gangster, I suppose. Um, when you receive a text from Rob Sapp pre-episode, you know that it's going to be a lot going on. It's going to be a heavy episode, and Rob Sapp's usage rate will be about the likes of Russell Westbrook, James Harden in this episode. So Sapp is always pumped up about this episode. Again, a very, very heavy episode. And in terms of themes, I had a couple in regards to family. I had family feuds and community. So those are my two themes from this episode, and we will of course flush those out over the course of the episode. Opening scene, we are at Amsterdam, of course, is in full swing, but we don't begin in Amsterdam. We begin looking at what a community looks like when you have no drug dealers or hoppers on the corners. So people are smiling, watering their lawns, just out there in the morning time, walking the streets, walking the clean streets, and we see that Bunny Colvin's experiment is starting to pay dividends within a lot of communities on the West Baltimore. Then we get to Amsterdam. We see Amsterdam is packed to a T, and Colvin is looking on. We see Carver is looking on. Carver, of course, says it's not pretty, but when you round up a bunch of drug dealers and junkies in one spot, it's not going to be pretty. Then we see Colvin. Colvin is seeing that his experiment is starting to pay off. So Colvin is wanting to go all in. He basically says to his officers, I want empty corners. I want empty corners. And he sends them an edict in which they go and start clearing more corners. You see one of the dealers gets his truck towed, baby cakes, which was the name of his truck. And then we see the officers take a bunch of dealers and a bunch of hoppers in the wagon. They drive them out, and this is, of course, our buddy Sammy Santangelo, along with another officer that we'll see over the course of the season. I forgot his name, but he'll be around over the course of the season. We see them drive them out to basically the middle of nowhere, and basically the message is, listen, you either sell your stuff in Amsterdam or the next time it's going to be West Virginia. So they spray them with tear gas, pepper spray, one or two. And we see that they let them out again, pure, basically midnight or at night. And they say, they joke with them, say, hey, you want to go, Baltimore is this way. I mean, it's something like that. They basically say, you want to go the other way. They're looking at the stars, go the other way and leave them out there in the middle of nowhere. So the message is being sent. You're either going to follow along with this program, or they're going to be dire consequences. A lot going on in this scene. And also we see that Colvin, well, no, that wasn't it. We'll get to that. But a lot going on in this scene for our opening. What were your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's important at this point in time in the series and the show to pause a little bit and think about the questions that they're presenting and how the magnitude of what they're showing and how the magnitude of what they're showing has manifested itself to very real situations today. And so this is, so one side of reform is to the reformer, it looks like this, and this is my vision, and this is what success looks like. But in the world, you don't just get to live by yourself, and your actions have consequences. And so while your reform might sound good in your head, what are the actual implications? And we saw two big ones in the beginning of this episode. On one side of it, you saw a community that was happy. On the other side, you saw what over policing looks like, and what it can feel like. And then on the other side of it, you also saw you're right. That there another scene is popping into my head. I know exactly which one you were referring to that didn't happen yet. So anyway, so one big consequence is that this is what over policing looks like. And so the question that the show is asking, and I think it's important for us to contemplate as we go forward from now to the end of the series, actually, is like, who gets to decide, and then what are the consequences to those decisions? And so I think this is setting up that really important question.
Yeah, it's it's never, and of course with the Wire, nothing is never it's never just black and white. They're going to give you variations of decisions and options from that standpoint. We go to Colvin back to Amsterdam. He notices the older lady that we saw in the previous episode who had not moved out, who, because they didn't identify her as still being as living there. It was an oversight by the officers who were doing the scouting for those vacant homes and those the spots where they were going to have Amsterdam at. So Colvin, of course, knows what he has to do from that standpoint. We'll see how that plays out in a later scene. That definitely will qualify as a setup for a later scene. Avon Stringer and Andy Krawcheck. Of course, Andy Krawcheck is the land developer that we first saw in season 2 with the Sabakas. He's now, he's working with Stringer with with his real estate. So Avon's out, of course. They're walking around the B&B site where they're going to put up the homes. Stringer is getting one of his first lessons in real estate about, things just are not as simple as ABC. You have cost overruns, you have things of that nature. Of course, Stringer has absolutely no idea what he's doing in regards to real estate, and that's what this scene is starting to expose. So it's going to show you. Krawcheck says, "Hey, you got to make a call. You got to make a call to Clay Davis. He's somebody that we have. This is what we have him there for." Well, maybe no. Hold on, I'm getting ahead. That we haven't got there yet. But basically, he's frustrated. You see Stringer frustrated in terms of the extra cost, and you see Avon, who doesn't have the helmet on, not helmet, but doesn't have the safety hat on the construction site, and has no interest, of course, in this whatsoever. He jumps in, and he, despite this, he jumps into the conversation and says, "My man's just trying to get some shit built. It doesn't seem like you guys know what you're doing and what have you." But Avon, Avon has no interest in this whatsoever. Basically, as they offer him a lunch to discuss this over lunch, he says, "No, I got other shit that I need to do," and he, of course, walks away. But this was not, again, let me not get this scene confused with another scene. This was not the scene where they discussed where Krawcheck discussed Clay Davis. So that's in a later scene. This is basically a scene showing that Avon has no interest in this whatsoever. What were your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, again, like I said, this episode is so heavy thematically, and so to the point that you made, this is the beginning of something, and so if I'm honoring that, like I'm just taking the show exactly where it is at this point in time, then all I know as a viewer is that Stringer's really into this, as we know. And Avon's not interested in this to anywhere near the level that Stringer is.
So we go to McNulty, Daniels, and Kima. McNulty and Kima, of course, trying to convince Daniels that they need to continue to go after Stringer Bell. They discussed the meeting that he had with Marlo. Up until this point, of course, they don't know that Marlo is, of course, is doing his own thing. There's a theory that possibly Marlo could be working with Stringer, and Daniels wants no part of this, from a standpoint of he's basically telling them that Stringer is quiet, and he says, "Hey, as long as he's quiet, I don't give a shit in terms of what in terms of what he's doing, as long as he's quiet, because he's not dropping bodies. The mandate on the unit right now is bodies. Stringer is quiet up until this point." And they're trying to convince him they need to get on this case right now. We come back a year from now, we won't be able to get him in the courtroom and what have you. But again, Daniels is concerned about the bodies and the bodies only. What were your thoughts on this scene?
Yeah. So here's what I'll encourage people to do. The words that are being said in this episode are not what they mean. So like you can listen to the language, but there's so much that is underneath everything. So what's going on with this situation right here is layers on layers on top of layers on top of layers. And so the layers for us as the viewers are, we know who McNulty is and we know how McNulty is. And we know what Daniels is becoming, the steps that he's making to become. And so McNulty is being his regular self. I actually want to take Kima out of this one for a second, because I don't actually think Kima's engaged to the idea that McNulty is engaged with. I don't think that's what's going on at all between those two, to be honest with you. So, but McNulty's being who McNulty is, and Daniels is putting his foot down in the sand on this. So it doesn't actually have anything to do with any of these investigations, which again goes to the larger systemic things that we've been talking about, or that the show has been posing to again, who gets to decide? Who gets to decide any of these decisions? Who to go after? Why we're going after them? And what is the purpose of the things that they're doing, right? Or what is the purpose of these things? Why? Why is any of this happening? Like, that's what the show is asking us to ask ourselves and to think about. It's not about what these characters are saying or doing. It's the why now. That's how The Wire is elevating itself to another level of show. And so just really quickly, McNulty's wrong. He's dead ass wrong. And it's not a theory. McNulty is saying Marlo and Stringer are together because he wants to get Stringer. And so he's finding any avenue at any point in time. And no, none of the police ever know when someone's doing something. It's called being a police, going out, being a detective. Like, that's how you find out. And so I keep saying that it's not that they don't see Marlo, can't see him coming, anything. As a matter of fact, Marlo's not being quiet with anything. It's everybody else that refuses to see him coming. They're refusing to. He's not being sneaky. He's not trying to hide.
No.
And so in any of that, no, that's not even the point of it. The point of it is in this part is, this is not about the case. This is not about bodies. This is not about Kintel. This is not about da-da-da. This is now transitioning into something else that is specifically between Daniels and McNulty.
So we have Bunk and Landsman. So Bunk types up a 10-page report on getting on Dozeman's gun. Types it, by himself. Landsman says, "Hey, you did this by yourself." says yes. Of course, they don't have the gun yet, but Landsman is impressed enough to allow Bunk to go into further to investigate the shootings that with Omar and the Barksdales. He tells Landsman, "Hey, I'm a murder police. I got two on my plate here. Um, I'm gonna work this case." And then you see Bunk, you see Landsman gives him a head nod as kind of say, "Okay, do your thing," and and they move on. What were your thoughts on this scene, which was a quick scene, but still going to lead to a lot? What were your thoughts?
Yeah, it's well acted scene, just really well acted scene.
Um, so we get to Avon, Stringer, and Slim Charles. Now, Avon is home. Um, they're driving through the neighborhood, driving through the places where they had the where where the prime real estate is, the best real estate is, and of course he sees Avon, that is, sees that they don't have any of the prime real estate um, at all, and he's getting pissed off. Stringer's in the back seat. Of course, Slim Charles is driving, and Stringer. Something interesting happens. Stringer is trying to give him kind of an update on what's going on, and he cuts Stringer off the second time and says, "Listen, we hired him for muscle. Him being Slim Charles, let him tell it. Very important." And I'll talk about that, after this scene. Slim Charles tells him, "Hey, this young boy named Marlowe ran us, had a setback with him, took out a couple of our boys, or beat up a couple of our boys. He's trying. Avon, of course, doesn't. He's been in jail for 26 months. Doesn't know who the hell who Marlowe is from anybody else. Says, is he down with one of these mobs?" And Slim Charles is like, "No, he's on his own." So this even incenses Avon that much more. He says, He says, "An independent with no backing ran us up off the corner." And he says, "I must be losing my motherfucking mind." And you see Stringer now. You see Stringer. The camera pans to Stringer, and you see him not shake his head, but you see his concern on his face, knowing that knowing what he sees what's coming. He sees what's coming on the horizon here. Um, what were your thoughts on this scene?
Yeah, this kind of further just established the things that we've been talking about with Stringer and Avon. If particularly like at the time, if you look at what Stringer's trying to do as to be more new school, then what Avon represents is old school. Um, so Stringer new school game, Avon old school game, and so they're kind of setting up those lines in this one.
Very important here. I mentioned so back in season two, at the end of season two, they were in jail. Avon was in jail, and then you had that scene where he was pissed off about how Stringer went about talking to Brother Muzone and asking him, who did it. And then, but he concedes to Stringer saying, "Hey, you go make the deal with Prop Joe, even though that deal had already been made, and run it as you see fit until I get home." Now he's home, and he and this is continuing from last episode where he saw the two dudes getting high in the middle of a party, had them tossed out. Now he sees that they have no real estate, so he is not happy with what Stringer has done as a leader. He's not happy, or where his organization is at right now. Also, and I mentioned this about him going to Slim Charles about getting information. That was important because basically, there was a time where all the information went through Stringer. When they went dealing with Omar, it was like, "Hey, how are we supposed to deal with this? Or what do you think about this?" Now he goes to Slim Charles, and I can make a case that Stringer has been somewhat demoted. because I need to, I'm at home. I need to go on, know what's going on in the streets. You can't help me with this. So we have this new dude, new muscle, Slim Charles, who I'm collecting information from. So I found that, found that interesting in regards to this particular scene. Um, we go to Bulk and Tasha's mother. Of course, Tasha was killed in the shootout when Omar with Omar and the Barksdales. So Bunk lets them know, basically lets them know that, hey, I know Tasha wasn't an innocent victim. She was part of, she was a player in this situation. She was a player, um, and um, they basically give Bunk next to nothing as far as any important information. But Bunk is not there about the information as much as he is there to send a message to send a message to Omar. He leaves his card. She plunks the card away, but he does say before he leaves, "Hey, make sure the right people, Omar, get this. Make sure you reach out to the right people." And says, "Hey, I'm basically going to be on you until I'm going to be on you moving forward." So Bunk was there not to so much. Bunk knew he wasn't going to solve the case in visiting them, but he was there to send a message and to get the information passed along to one Omar, which we'll see how that pans out. What were your thoughts on this scene?
Yeah, nah, you named it. It was set up for Omar.
McNulty and Kima go down to Annapolis. They're looking further into D'Angelo's murder. Um, and the peoples down in Annapolis do not, of course, want to turn this into a murder. So I thought that it spoke to that. They just want to pass this along as a suicide and just keep it moving. Quick scene, but
wait, pause. I can't do that. Pause. That is not what's going on in that scene. McNulty brings this cold case, to Annapolis, and she asked him. She's like, "Did they say this is a murder?" He's like, "Maybe." He's like, the coroner will go with further. It will go if we uncover further investigation. And then she goes, "Do you have a suspect?" He goes, "No, not
true.
really."
Yeah, no, that's true.
And she's like, "So why would I be doing this?" And then she goes, "We like to duck a case of few around here, not lean into every single one."
She's right.
So anyways, I just need to clarify that.
You're absolutely right. She's right because there's not enough. There's not a. He doesn't have enough. There's nothing. He hasn't. He doesn't have nowhere near enough to flip that into a murder. So no, you're right from that.
No, me also including it's not his murder. It's not his investigation.
Right.
It was done by the people. It's nothing. He's a cop, and he's using his abilities to. Anyways, we've addressed McNulty plenty of times. We know what McNulty's doing.
So
sorry.
No, go ahead. So no, that's basically it in regards to that, and you laid out what you thought about. What you thought about the scene, or you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, nope, that's it.
So we go to Daniels and Marla, Lieutenant Cedric and Marla. They're at an outing that's full of politicians. A lot going on in this scene because you see Marla now is starting to get attention. You see Delegate Watkins discussing, basically saying that, hey, it's time for some new blood in certain parts. So he has his eyes on Marla Daniels. Tony Gray was there. He hears that, and Odell also says in this scene that he's not, that, Clarence, that he's not happy with Clarence Royce. He gives the first indication of not being happy with Royce. Tony Gray hears this, and we'll talk about that. We'll talk about that later. So we see, again, Cedric Daniels is playing the part of they have to portray this image of everything is good in regards to Cedric and Marla, because he's trying to help her out. And she's starting to make inroads in regards to her political career, and her really first time she's getting noticed by very important people, and of course, the most important person in that room that was shown in the scene was Odell Watkins. What were your thoughts on this scene?
Yeah, I mean, exactly. I think the only thing I would add on to what you said was I just thought it was a really clever way of including including the audience and breaking down the information by having Tony Gray deliver why Royce might be teetering a little bit. I thought that was very clever.
Yeah, it really, it's really setting up future episodes and even seasons ahead. Like, this is the first in terms of the political thing. So this is kind of like the beginnings of that from that standpoint. Of course, we'll see how that plays out. But giving you some more insight with the political, with how things go in terms of the political game here. We go back to McNulty and Kima. They're at a bar. They're discussing their next move, and then they begin to talk about his personal life in regards to where he's at with his ex-wife. He says, basically says, fuck her. She's has her hooks into a downtown lawyer. Or he's on to somebody else. And they bring up Teresa DiGasino, the lady that he's slept with in the previous, maybe it was that was the last episode. So he talks about her. Says that she's somebody that might tells him when the shit stinks, and he's describing her glowingly, describing her. So they kind of discussed that quick scene. But what were your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I think the only thing that I would add on to that is just, this is what I mean why I wanted to separate Kima out from McNulty's self-destructive behavior, is because this is a perfect example. She's not an enabler, McNulty. I talked last week about where I thought she was seeking from McNulty, but so this is scene like when McNulty, like in the very beginning of the scene, McNulty kind of looks over at another woman, and Kima kind of looks at her to kind of like gives her that nod, kind of like what he would do with Bunk, but she looks at him and immediately laughs at him and goes, "You don't have a chance," and they continue on in the conversation, and so that's why I'm separating Kima out. Kima is not she's not part of McNulty's. Part of McNulty's manipulating cycle.
Yeah, I
there's another scene to dive into. Dive into that.
Yeah,
I know your counterpoint. There's another scene.
We'll talk about. Yeah, we'll talk about that.
Yeah.
So we go to Marla and Cedric. So the night is over. Marla, in regards to that, she of course thanks him for showing up and what have you. And initiates to him, hey, maybe we could possibly get back together. Well, she doesn't say it, but she gives the indication, and he says, hold up, I'm just here to show up. You tell me which suit to wear, I'm there, and what have you, and anything else beyond that, I just don't know. Of course, she doesn't know about Perlman. She doesn't know about Perlman, and when he says that, she takes her hand off his hand, and and the scene concludes. What were your thoughts?
Yeah, this scene only exists to explain the functionality of their relationship to the audience.
Yeah. So we go on to Avon and Stringer. After, of course, this is this is at the end of the day. They both are, they're in the office. Avon, as we mentioned before, is unhappy about the current predicament of the Barksdale organization with not having the prime real estate at the corners. Stringer at this point is trying to convince him to move on from, he says, we moved past that run and gun, let the youngins worry about, how to wholesale. Says, we're making so much money off the top, it doesn't matter. Who gives a fuck about who's which corner anybody is on if we're taking it off the top and putting it, let's put it to good use, in terms of real estate and things of that nature. Says, hey, we can run this whole city. Forget about corners, we can run this entire city. Avon's taking this in, and he's just basically saying, he said, he tells them, hey, when do we buy corners? We take corners. And again, you have Stringer just trying to convince him to a different way or a new way of thinking. But, Avon comes out with the epigraph, just a gangster. I'm just a gangster, I suppose. And he says he wants his corners. It's just that simple. Did Stringer make a strong enough plea to Avon? Were you satisfied from that standpoint?
All right. So again, that's I tried to warn you. This is a deep episode.
Yes.
And everything is way. You gotta go way deeper, way deeper in that. So okay, let's break this thing down. Okay. Either last episode or episode before this, where they were having a conversation, where Avon was talking about to Stringer, remember how you were all like own our own businesses, and then Stringer's like, yeah, you was with the AK-47, you wanted to go take on I forgot the dealer's name or whatever, but he's famous. That conversation. So yeah. I only bring that up to say we've been talking about them like they're business partners, and they're not. This is not a business partnership. These are brothers. They know who they are. Each of them know who they are, and have always known who they are and where they stand on this side of it. And it's manifested itself in a lot of different ways throughout their lives, but the connection is brotherhood. The connection is family. So you got to switch out that lens. So these are two brothers having a discussion. These are two close family members having this discussion. And anybody who has someone really near and dear close to them who they spend a lot of time and know a lot about know that in any conversation, the words are layered based off the history that you have. And so while I may say a comment that sounds very, like, for example, with my brother, I may say a comment that sounds very chill and I'm not trying to upset him, but because he remembers something 20 years ago that I did to him, now he's upset. And I say that to say that's the level of depth of their conversation. And so when they're having this conversation right here and now, Stinger's not trying to convince him of anything per se. And neither is Avon going to try to convince Stringer of anything per se, like through their words. Stringer in the back gives that back in the car, like when Slim Charles was telling Avon about Marlo, he's giving that kind of like down, is because he knows, he's like you said, he knows what this is going to bring out. And what this is going to bring out is the gangster. Avon wants his corners. Avon has always wanted his corners. Avon has always thought in a way that is confrontational. Stringer does not think like that, has never thought like that, has always been about how do we make the best deal possible. Now, that deal could include killing and murdering, doing all the crazy stuff that is done in the game, or the deal could look like coming together, with the other group to form a conglomerate. Avon can't think that way. He can't think in that. Like you said, there's lots of grays. There's not lots of grays in Avon's life.
No.
Avon is black and white, and Stringer is all gray. Now, it's very important that we talk about this because I have to say, this is what elevates The Wire, and this is what elevates this season, because this season starts to tell a much deeper story than what is going on in the drug game. Like, that's actually the least important thing possible now, because they're opening the world. Drugs is just a symptom. I was about to say a real project here. What was their projects called?
The Towers.
The Towers was just a symptom of the problem. The show, The Wire, is taking us on a journey to what are the real problems that created the environment, that created the Stringers and the Avons, no matter what side of the spectrum they sit on, whether they're more gangster, whether they're more politician, it still is about pumping a deadly disease into a community. These are the bigger questions. And that's why I say the words, yep, they're nice, but The Wire is exploding beyond what the words are and what the singular actions of each individual character. They're exploding now because they're gearing up for what will be season 4. And in season 4, none of the actions matter. It's all about the deeper meaning. Yeah.
We have, we get to Omar, Kima, Omar, Dante, and Kimmy. Kimmy. Kimmy tells Omar and Dante about the police bunk meeting with Tasha's peoples. Omar, when she gives Omar the card, he recognizes that it's Bunk, says that he knows him. She, of course, is still, upset about what happened to Tasha, and says maybe we should tell him what really happened. And he of course brushes that off and says, I got this, I'll take care of it. I got this, I'll take care of it. And again, this scene continuing on with family feuds. There clearly is still tension within that threesome of Omar, Kimmy, and Dante. But the message has been sent from Bunk, and Bunk, of course, accomplishes what he set out to do, and that was get the message to Omar. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, no, you named it. It's exploring the tensions between that group.
So we get to Colvin and the elderly lady that we saw going into the vacant. He tries to convince her to move. He says he has something set up, a nice house not too far from her church on the bus line. She doesn't have to worry about the money. She tries to explain to him, look, I've been in this house, forever. I came to this place, very, very important what she says. She says, I came to this house when we were the only Blacks in this neighborhood, which shows you how much, of course, that neighborhood has changed. And says, criticizes Bunk.
But also shows you how long she's been there.
Yeah, that's not, yeah, that's basically what I'm saying. It was saying, yeah. So she says, you have a plan for me getting this new house, but you don't have a plan for what's outside of my doorway. Criticizes, Colvin from that standpoint. And again, when you get to her age,
no, don't do that. It's real bad.
No. Hold on. Let me finish. No, I'm not criticizing.
Okay,
no,
go ahead.
I hope I live that long.
I tried. All right.
I wish I lived that long. So I'm not. No, it's not age shaming, but I'm saying it's harder for older people to move on to move in general. Like, I've been here for 40 years. I'm not trying to move in general. So she's coming from that standpoint as well. So no, I'm not. Yeah. So she, you can tell me about this new house, but I've been here. This is a house that house has, despite what's going on in the neighborhood, and despite the drugs and all that, this house holds sentimental value to her. She bought it with her husband. So, from that standpoint, she, part of her or a lot of her probably doesn't want to move. But and also, again, she's criticizing him, saying that you don't have a plan. You don't have a plan for what's outside my doorway. What were your thoughts on this scene?
Yep. Okay. So this is a top 5 all-time scene for me.
Whoa.
It's a powerhouse. Yeah, no, it's a powerhouse. It's a powerhouse. And so, without getting so deep into it, because I could go for hours just literally on this scene. Without getting so deep into it, we'll just take it on this surface level. Who gets to make the decision? Who gets to make the choices? Who asked her if that could happen to her neighborhood? Right? So we got the micro example of Bunny made this decision based off of who cares. He made this decision, and now she has to live with the consequences. Now, you can say, well, Bunny's only reacting to what his circumstances are. Okay, so then who made that decision and who created that, right? And so, as you said, this is gray. And so we can't get into the trap of defending these characters' actions, like thinking the motives of the characters that we like on the show or the characters that perceive as likable are just a right motive, because they're not. Nothing that Bunny's doing is okay. Nothing. Zero. He's told nobody of this plan. He's breaking every law known to man. He's putting people like that. It's just no part of this is a good idea. None. Zero. And so again, it's a deeper, larger question. The question is what happens when you try to make change, and how do you go about it? There are no easy answers, and The Wire doesn't even try to present easy answers to this, but they're starting to pose the question. And that's why this season, and as you can tell, this episode is so super important, because it's elevating those levels of questioning that is going on. Yeah.
Yeah, and also, so I'm looking at it. It's also about how do people receive change as well. We saw she's not, she doesn't receive the change, and we saw in the not previous episode, but a couple scenes back, Avon is not receiving the change. So we can talk about that as well.
Really quickly though, what's the change? When we said reform, we can't automatically assume or put on reform as reform in itself is good. So just because you're a reformer doesn't mean you're doing things for good.
No,
that has to be very, very clear.
No,
right?
Absolutely.
And so then in that case, then what's the change to accept, right? So if we look at Detective Colvin, if we look at this woman, that's why it's such a deep scene. For her, what she is saying is, this is my home. I paid for this land. I worked hard. I created a life here. Why doesn't that count for something? Where is my protection from that? I'm an 80-year-old woman. There's all this going outside my door. Why am I not the one who is most valued in this equation? Now, to Avon doesn't need to accept that change. Nobody asked him, and he's been fairly consistent in what he thought about what Stringer's doing. There's nothing he needs to accept, because he never accepted anything in the first place. So this is not a change. This is Stringer doing what he wants to do, and this is Bunny doing what he wants to do. Now, they're doing it because they think it's best, absolutely, which is an important part of being human. We all do the actions we think are best, but a very great indicator of if those actions truly are, you know, the end result we want is from the people who are adversely affected by the actions. Not everybody's happy with what happened. The people who are adversely affected by it. And why are they adversely affected by it? And that's why that scene between Bunny Colvin and the woman is such a powerful scene. Because there is no right or wrong answer in that equation. It's just all pain.
Yeah, no, there's no question about it. We go to Bodie and Stringer. They're discussing Amsterdam. Stringer sees what's going on. He decides he tells Bodie, hey, you know, I'll give you a, you know, let's give one of our, you know, little hoppers a package, make it small, just in case it's a trap. So the wheels are spinning in his head in terms of Amsterdam or in terms of what he possibly seen. And of course, Bodie, of course, acquiesces and says, I'll, report, Stringer tells him, I'll report back to me directly from this. We know the history of their relationship. So he basically, Bodie does what he's told. What were your thoughts on this scene?
Set up. Just a good scene, not even set up. Everything that's set up is major. So this is a good thing. Just transitioning us to getting into. Go ahead.
Yeah, what you about to say?
No, go ahead.
We go to Avon and Slim Charles. Avon realizes just how weak they are now from a standpoint of, he basically saying, like, who do we got? And Slim Charles says, hey, Cuddy is going to work out, but he doesn't know about these other dudes that they have around him. He tries to ask about a number of hitters who are either locked up or on the run who are not available. You hear Eggy Mule, Shorty Boy, and a lot of these names, by the way, are real either kingpins or killers who were in Baltimore, West Baltimore. So if these names sound familiar, then there's a reason why. So he basically tells Slim Charles, hey, take Cuddy and the best of the rest. And he like he said earlier in this episode, he wants his corners. So he sends Slim Charles out to go and put a hurting on Marlowe and go after his corners. What were your thoughts on this scene?
This is set up just because it's leading to a much bigger thing that I'll talk about.
We go to Stringer and Andy Krawcheck. Krawcheck said there's been a setback with the real estate. Stringer, of course, is frustrated, saying, how I'm supposed to make some money, how are we supposed to get anywhere with this if you keep going in my pockets? Krawcheck says, hey man, you need to make the call. He says, again, you talk in terms of making the call, he's talking about Clay Davis. Tells him, hey, Clay is a guy who is a political connect that you need to get things done in this world. He says, democracy in action. Again, we're seeing, Stringer's journey with this particular plot line. What were your thoughts on this scene with the real estate developer, land developer?
I'm just gonna call it out right now because every scene with them will always be tinted in this. I'll tell you exactly the thing that really disgusts Avon about what's going on, and it has nothing to do with the drug game. Is that being a part? Oh, that was entirely accurate. Being a part of all the different stuff that they've done, criminal, drugs, and everything else illicit that they've done included, requires you to hustle people and not get hustled.
Yes.
Avon can smell the hustle coming a mile away.
Yep.
He can see it. He can see it. And it's disgusting that Stringer can't see it. It disgusts him that Stringer can't see it.
Well, you
So
say that.
every single scene that involves the retailer is some part of that. Avon's Stringer's getting hustled. And this is not even something we all like. This is not even something that is like, baked into the end of the series. Like you only figure out then. We've all been, any of us who are adults, and again, this is the difference between 24-year-old me and 40-year-old me. Those of us who have had to have repairs on various things in our lives, in our homes or cars or whatever. That's more what I mean, rather than our bodies. Know how it operates sometimes. And when all these things keep coming up, you're upselling me. I know what you're doing. I know exactly what you're doing. You're trying to get me to buy more stuff or trying to make this job last longer so you can get more money.
Right.
We can all sense it as just regular adults. And our lives don't depend on us being able to sniff out a hustle like that. And that's what I'm saying.
Yeah. So
and I said the word disgusting, no, I'm not attributing that specific word to you can use frustrated, mad, upset, whatever words you want to use, whatever feeling words you want to use in there. But that's genuinely what every single one of these scenes are about.
So in the scene earlier, when Avon was there at the construction site, and I forgot to mention this, he says, it seems like the expertise is not where it's supposed to be. Now he said it to Krawcheck, but I feel like he was speaking just as much. He was talking to Krawcheck that he was speaking to Stringer as well when he said.
But he's not speaking those specific words. You gotta go deeper than that. You gotta go deeper. When Avon pays somebody to do something, what does he expect to happen?
The job to get done.
Right. Does anybody ever come back to Avon and say, I need more money to get this job done?
No.
Exactly. That's what he's reacting to.
So we go to Cuddy, Slim Charles, and Gerard, and another Barksdale soldier was in the room as well. They're devising a plan to attack Marlowe's corners. And like the plan was laid out there. Like, hey, Cuddy told, Slim Charles says, look, listen, they basically tell them, wait for the call. You don't want to be shooting across the driver. And so on and so on. So they detail a plan that seemingly was a good plan. We'll see how it plays out. But you hear Gerard and the other guy say, we don't. You hear the other dude says, "Is going to be some rift left for us because I don't want to be just a decoy, used as a decoy." And when he said that, you knew things weren't going to go well when he asked that question instead of focusing on the actual execution of the plan that they've laid out for them, that Cuddy and Slim Charles have laid out for them. What were your thoughts on this scene?
Yeah, this is setup. I'll get more into it at the very end.
So we go through Colvin and Colonel Foster. Colvin, of course, Colvin wants Foster to sign off on the house for the elderly lady. Foster reluctantly does this. Does this. And he says, if something comes up, you lose, you forge my signature. And of course he says, Rawls better not get whiffed of this and what have you. So we see, again, Colvin is, cutting corners from that standpoint and not telling anybody, of course that his bosses don't know what is going on from that standpoint. What were your thoughts?
Setup.
So we go to Cuddy, Slim Charles, Country, and the other guy that was in the car, Gerard, and the other dude, the unnamed dude, Barksdale soldier, were in the car. And of course, they don't follow the instructions. They, instead of waiting for the call from Cuddy and Slim Charles, they decide, hey, let's, Avon's home, let's impress let's impress Avon. And keep in mind, Marlowe's ready for war. We saw that in the last episode when he told Chris to tool up. He's ready. So Marlowe's crew is ready. They're strapped. They're waiting for somebody for an attack. So the lookouts see them coming a mile away. The lookouts go let Marlowe's crew know that they're up right up the street. They come through out of nowhere. Driver gets shot. Country gets shot. Cuddy and Slim Charles recognize this. They toss their guns and in frustration, saying, because they clearly didn't follow instructions on waiting for the phone call that they were supposed to receive from Cuddy and Slim Charles, and they run off. Gerard, the guy with the dreadlocks, he gets away, but the driver and Country both get shot and killed without even getting a shot off on Marlowe's peoples. What were your thoughts?
This is setup. I'll talk about it at the end.
Tony and Carcetti, they again playing racquetball again. They discuss Delegate Watkins' comments. Tony Gray says Watkins says, that Delegate Watkins that says that he's, a little unhappy with Royce or a little disappointed with Royce. And then once he says that, you see Carcetti's wheels start spinning once he says that in terms of his facial expression. And then Carcetti, and man, Carcetti is so cunning. Carcetti says, maybe somebody should take a run at him. You think somebody will take a run at Royce? And that gets Tony Gray's wheels to start spinning, and it gives him some thoughts. What were your just well played by Carcetti, man, in terms of what he's doing. What were your thoughts on this scene?
Yeah, but that's also why I said absolutely. And then the thing that I would add on is just that's why it's important to bring up the point early on of how smart it was to have Tony Gray talk about like all the different things, because Tony Gray is actually the one that's feeding Carcetti the information. He's feeding him he's the instrument of his own destruction. He just doesn't know it.
Yes.
So that's why I thought it was very clever.
We go to Marlo, Vincent, Snoop, and Chris. This is the first appearance of Snoop that we see, her first appearance on the show. Of course, the shootout's taking place. Marlo tells Vincent, hey, the Barksdale's are weak right now. His peoples didn't get a shot off. I don't want it to stop. That's just what, that we have I'm dealing with a full clip. And as he turns to Snoop and Chris, and Vincent tells him, like, hey, when if you're holding the crown, he says jail cells and graveyards are full of boys who wore the crown. Marlo says, hey, well, it's my turn to wear it, and it's my turn to wear it. So right now, and rightfully so, he doesn't have it, really any respect for the Barksdales, for what they can do for their organization, because right now they are weak. He specifically points out they didn't even, not only did we kill two of them, they didn't even get a near shot off. And he says that speaks to the quality of Barksdale's people. So it's clear where Marlo's head is at right now. Clear where his head is at right now. And again, we see Snoop for the first time in the series. What are your thoughts?
Shut up.
Bubbles and Kima. Bubbles has his t-shirt business and has his t-shirt business going. He lets Kima know that two of Avon's people got shot, were killed by Marlo. He lets her know, and clarifies the fact that Marlo is not with Avon. And that he says, hey, he's flying his own, he says he's flying his own colors, and he says before the scene is over that he says West Side's about to be all Baghdad and shit. So Bubbles, again, having to get on the street, knowing what's going on, and you see how valuable he is. And Kima, of course, realizes that, now not her as much, but McNulty had it all wrong in regards to the any type of collaboration that was with the Barksdales or Marlowe. What were your thoughts?
Yep, set up. That's what it revealed.
We go to Coben and Carver. Of course, he's following the shootout. Coben is seeking information on who got shot and who was involved, and of course, Carver has nothing to show for it as far as knowing and having any information. Has nothing, which of course frustrates Coben. What were your thoughts on this scene?
Set up.
Omar and Bruiser. Bruiser, of course, is the older gentleman that Bunk was spoke to last episode. And this was a quick scene, but we'll see what happens. What came out of this scene. So again, quick scene, but again, this will be a setup for a scene with Bunk and Omar. So you get to Carcetti and family. Carcetti gets home. He's looking to play a tape that from one of his counsel from one of his hearings, and he gets annoyed that his son put a sandwich hit a sandwich in a VCR, which shows you how old this show was. But 2004, that the fact that they were still using VCRs, and they were, 2004, they still were using VCRs at that point. I had one, I remember. A scene that probably didn't need to be in here, to be honest with you. What were your thoughts?
Yeah, this is setup. This is just showing, not even setup, showing him at home with his family.
Yeah. So yeah, a scene that probably didn't even really need to be in this episode. Donette and Brianna, very important. So Donette tells Brianna, hey, she's with Stringer now. Kind of, she's seeking Brianna's approval to be with Stringer, considering that she but was with D'Angelo, of course, and had a child by him. Brianna is very doesn't says, hey, he's been going almost a year now. Stringer is handsome and what have you. Have no problem with it. Then she mentions Donette mentions McNulty's visit, and really gets Brianna's wheel spinning when she mentions McNulty's visit and tells in his speculation that D'Angelo may have been murdered. We'll see again. This is a big time scene and things that are going to happen moving forward. What were your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, like it's playing at a deeper theme that will happen later on. So it's hard to talk about that without spoiling some things.
Yeah. Daniels and Perlman. So you see Daniels discussing Perlman and her future in terms of politics. Says that she's going to run for office, and it says that with knowing her that she's probably going to win. Says that he has to be there. He's going to be there for her. Perlman is not happy about the situation because up until this point they have not came out publicly yet. So their affair is been in secret, really. In terms of publicly, maybe McNulty and some people like that know it, but not it's not. They haven't dropped it. Everybody doesn't know. So Daniels basically explains to her, hey, I have to help her out. I can't be the just not even divorced husband with the white woman on his arm. And Perlman again is not happy about the current predicament, but it is what it is. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, the scene established. Yep, everything that you said, and then the only thing that I would add is that the scene just kind of like establishes where their particular relationship is at.
Yeah, and by the way, and I just thought about this. If you're Perlman, you have no right to be to be upset. You are messing with you're messing with a married man. Like you would, like he's they're not even, they're barely separated. So I mean, so I don't think she really was in the place to be upset. He's, still trying to figure out his marriage. He's with you, and he's still trying to figure out. He's trying to help out his ex-wife, who who has been with him all these years, trying to further his career. So I don't think Perlman had really a leg to stand on as far as being upset. We go to Avon Stringer and Slim Charles. Of course, Avon is upset in regards to two of his people getting killed. He's holding a gun in his hand. He's Avon basically says, I'm gonna do this shit myself. Stringer tries to calm him down, saying, let me handle this. Let's build up our muscle. Let's wait and let's build up our muscle. Avon says, we don't have time for that. He says, when word gets out that that this dude is punking me, what am I going to look like? You see then Cuddy and Slim Charles mainly says, hey, let me and Cuddy handle this ourselves, so nobody fucks up. Nobody fucks up. Avon tells him, get it right. They walk out, and then you see Avon is kind of, zoned out with a gun in his hand, and you see Stringer talking about Amsterdam, and Avon, is not listening to Stringer at all. And then Stringer tries to, then at the end of the scene, Avon's like, you say something, and Stringer says, nothing at all. And so I said nothing at all, which again shows you the directions, just how polar, just shows you how it was indicative of where they're at in terms of directions that they're going in. Just basically not, you see Avon just not paying attention to him at all during that time period, when he was discussing Amsterdam. What were your thoughts on this scene?
Yeah, so this is another one where it's just like layer after layer after layer after layer. And so to your point, it definitely shows like they're furthering, kind of like distancing of each other. But the way that the scene is constructed is the eloquent part of it, I guess, is the way that I would describe it. Stringer, all right. this is like Inception. Stringer, who is looking to fundamentally change the Baltimore West Side, East Side, the Baltimore drug game by imitating the mafia and forming a conglomerate, is talking about a weird thing that he saw down, and then he's talking about Bunny's experiment to faux legalize drugs into different areas. And Avon can't hear any of this because he's so caught up on playing the chess match with Marlo, the thing that he wants to do, right? And so it's like you have with Stringer these big, huge ideas, these big, huge concepts. How do I change the drug game for myself, and how the drug game itself is changing independently, which is wildly different from anything that Avon even remotely can relate to right now at this point in time. Because as great as saying Barksdale, let's all remember the last time Avon was in charge of getting some drugs, he effed that one up royally. So he's not to be trusted in this department, actually getting really good product anymore. And so, but he can't even hear any of those things because all he can focus on is Marlo. And so a thought that just came to me as I was thinking about this is also, you talked about themes earlier on, themes to you. Now I'm thinking about a theme of tunnel vision and how dangerous it can be, right? Marlo represents tunnel vision for Avon. Barksdale, or Stringer, represents tunnel vision for McNulty. And they're both kind of pushing their different organizations down a slightly worse path because they can't get out of their tunnel vision. That just came to me as I was talking.
Yeah, Avon.
Right,
yeah, Avon is coming from a perspective of a kingpin who sees a up and coming kingpin coming after what he has held on to.
Nope.
What he wants.
Nope. I'm going to fight back on that one. I'm going to argue back on that one. I don't know if Avon identifies himself as a kingpin, but I'll go with that. He holds the crown right now, the figurative crown. That's what I'm saying. No, Avon recognizes himself. I'm not even sure right now. But here's what I'm saying. Even more so than that, Avon is a soldier.
Yes.
And he's focused on the kill.
Yes.
A kingpin doesn't just focus on one singular kill.
No, you're right. No,
that's not what a boss does.
No.
So that's what I'm saying. I wonder what he would even say he is at this point in time. But that's fine. You could talk about like the general coming down off the hill, but that even further goes to the point of Avon represents everything old in the game.
Yes. And let's keep this in mind too in regards to Avon. And I think that the show depicts this brilliantly. Marlo, and we can flesh this out more. Marlo, has been in these streets, all right, for the last couple of years. When Avon was in jail, Marlo's building up his organization and is out there in the trenches. Avon was out the game for 26 months. Let's be honest. He was out the game.
No, well, here, pause. That's pause. No. That's not how it works. Real. We're not doing that. We're not doing like Avon can't run his thing from like doesn't have
no.
Different. Like,
he was running from jail, but that's still not being in jail is still not being out like being on point like straight. Yeah. There's a completely different. There's a big difference.
Yeah. Yeah, we could break down like the nitty gritty of that, but ultimately the show doesn't care about questions and thoughts like that. Here's the ultimate part of it. So rise and you fall. It's just that simple. You rise and you fall. You rise and you fall. Right, and we're coming in at a very specific point in these characters' lives. But what's even more interesting, again, now where the wire is going to, right, is it's like. This season is kind of opening our eyes to what happened in the first season, right? Like, how did Nolte get all this ability to push a case through and everything? This season's actually showing us the process of how that happens, right? Like, so it's answering like that interesting question for itself. I'm calling a timeout because I do have to depart a little bit from I'm just going to focus on this one season, this one episode. And I will say, we don't have to speculate on how Marlo became Marlo because there's an entire season 4 that shows us, not even specifically Marlo, shows us how the young Hopper becomes Marlo, becomes Barksdale.
Yeah. No.
So we've actually seen the journey already. So we don't have to speculate on how did Marlo acquire all this. There's no acquiring of anything. It's just the next vicious person up.
Yes.
So that's just what it is. Marlo represents a lot, and it's not being good at killing. That's not what he represents.
We go to Daniels and we did that. We go to this scene right here. McNulty, Kima, and Daniels. So McNulty goes back to Daniels and say, "Hey, we got some bodies for you. Marlo dropped Marlo killed 2 of Avon's peoples. Let's go. We got some bodies." Kima says, "Hey, we found out that Marlo's on his own. He's not working with the Barksdales, and this is going to be, so they're thinking like, all right, now he's going to join us in our line of thinking, possibly in terms of going back after Stringer. Wrong, not the case. Daniels basically says, what is my rank? And at this point, it's about respect. So he tells Kima, he says, ask Kima what is his rank. She says lieutenant. He asks McNulty that. McNulty doesn't respond, and he says, if you can't remember that, you can go back to a unit, any unit that will want to have you, that will be willing to take you, and basically tells them to get the fuck out of his office. No, tells them to get the fuck out of his office. Getting back to community, at this point, Daniels is like, look, I took you off a boat, and you're still coming. You're still being insubordinate. And getting back to community, I think Daniels was pissed off because Daniels built a community in regards to this squad. Daniels is the driving force behind the major case unit. This was not a unit member. This did not begin as a unit. So he's looking at, look, I've built this unit to do great police work. And McNulty, you are fucking this up. You're threatening that with your behavior and what have you. And you're dragging Kima along, who I brought along when she was a beat cop. So I think Daniels at this point has just had enough, and it's not even about right. Like Kim tells him, it's not even about being right. It's about respect. It's about respect. It's about respect more than anything. So I love the scene. Great scene from that standpoint. What were your thoughts?
Yep, I couldn't. Yep. That's ditto to everything you said. I literally have nothing to add.
So we get to Omar and Bunk. They discuss the shooting. Bunk gets on Omar about the neighborhood and what it used to be, and basically tells Omar, look, we once had a community where everybody looked out for each other, and you, with your actions, have threatened that, or not only threatening that, but you're part of the problem. You're part of the problem here. I see kids glorifying you, and he lets them know that, when I see that, I realize how far we've fallen. And of course, Bunk was already pissed off from the standpoint that he realized that Omar basically eliminated his eyeball witness in terms of Bruiser, not eliminated in terms of killing him, but basically Bruiser's not going to Bruiser. That when you saw Bruiser and Omar, that was Omar intimidation per se. He's not going to do anything to Bruiser, but basically Bruiser is not. You can take Bruiser out the equation as far as testifying. So he's pissed off. So Bunk is pissed off about that, and feels that Omar was kind of dismissive of Tasha being killed. Very powerful point in this, very powerful scene. One of the few times that you see anyone get to Omar and check Omar in the series. One of the very few times. But he definitely bothered. He definitely got to Omar. There's no question about it. I have a few things on this, but what were your thoughts on this scene? Great scene.
Oh, you're gonna take a majority of it. You got it. So fun fact about me. This scene is so powerful, it's painful for me to watch. I can't even watch it. So it's always hit me very, very intensely. And so this is the little that I can say because it's so emotional. I actually can't talk on it. The little bit that I will say is it's so powerful to see two black men on television talk to each other. Two powerful, strong black men standing in their abilities, no matter what their profession is in this series. But just to see two black actors kind of like go tit for tat with each other and not be talking about any slavery or race. There's all those things that's what makes it so powerful to have that conversation, but to not be directly addressing it, just to be having a conversation with each other, powerful. You got it.
In terms of like community, it took me back to, growing up in the Trenton, Marsville area. Trenton, of course, Trenton, New Jersey, Marsville, Pennsylvania, right across, or right next to each other, literally. You could cross one bridge to get to the other city, and I went back and forth in those particular cities. When you have a community, it's a beautiful thing. Like everybody on the street and everybody on, shout out to 45 saying he can drive. Everybody knew each other. Everybody knew each other. The neighbors, the pizza man, the pizza place down the street, the corner store down the street. And it was like a sense of everybody looked out for each other. And it really was a beautiful thing. I mean, I growing up and just, especially in terms of, I guess it was from the ages, I would say from 6 to when I was in middle school, and then I wasn't around there as much because as I got older, of course. But it was, what Bunk is saying is, Bunk is like, yo, you are just fucking this up. You have fucked that up. We had a community, and I think Bunk, he says all we have is death around us. Is all we got is death now around us. So I felt Bunk from that standpoint of saying that it took me back to what communities look like way back when. And again, I'm not in every, of course I can't speak to every community in this country right now, but there seems to be less of those type of communities now than there were years ago. So again, great, powerful scene. And again, the acting, like to your point, was definitely top notch. Clay Davis and Stringer. So Stringer goes to Clay Davis, and he goes to Clay Davis, and Clay Davis says, "Hey, I need $25,000, $25,000 for the city permits." And then he says, Stringer says 25,000. He says, "Yeah, 20,000 for the permits and $5,000 for bribing these greedy motherfuckers." So now the game is on now. We're gonna see these two, of course, a lot moving forward. In the series, and not, I mean, in the season. What were your thoughts on this scene?
Shut up. You're right.
So we get to Cuddy, Slim Charles. Cuddy, they spot two corner boys from Marlowe's crew, Fruit, and another guy, another young guy who had asthma, who we've seen a little sparingly through the first couple episodes. Cuddy recognizes Fruit from the guy who ripped him off in episode 1. Tells Slim Charles we owe him money. He owes me money. You see, then Slim Charles shoots the young boy, shoots and kills him. Cuddy has a clear shot, and I mean has Fruit dead to rights. He glances at the young boy who's dead, and then glances back to Fruit, and then lets Fruit go. Fruit runs off, and you see Slim Charles say, "Come on, let's go." And Slim Charles takes responsibilities, thinking that he was the reason why Cuddy didn't kill the young boy, saying he got, I opened up too quick, got in your line of fire. So they run off with, they drive off with killing, one of Marlowe's peoples. And of course, Fruit gets away. What were your thoughts on this scene?
Yeah, this ties into the end. I'll talk about it when we get there.
All right, we have Bodie and Spider. Bodie tells Spider. Bodie is the dealer that is of course a younger dealer. He tells Spider, "Hey, you won't get caught." Sends him to Amsterdam with the small package that we talked about earlier with Stringer. So we see Spider starting to get a little bit more. We've seen Spider now a couple times in this not this episode but in this season. So it's somebody to kind of remember for the future. And now the Barksdales have people some have their foot in the in Amsterdam in terms of making a profit. What were your thoughts?
Yep, set up.
We see Tommy and Teresa D'Agostino. He continues to try to convince her to help him running his campaign. And for the first time, he has her ear. He lets her know that Odell Watkins is not happy with Royce. He discusses the state's witness case with her as well. She gives him a strategy from a standpoint of you're gonna need somebody to split the vote. And then he says, Tony. Then he says Tony Gray could be that guy. So they are finally in unison in regards to how they're going to go about possibly making him mayor for the first time, because previous episodes she was completely against it, says he basically had no chance to win. So for the first time, he has her ear in regards to this. What were your thoughts?
I wanted to say setup, but
it is a setup, but it was a lot going on.
Yeah, it connects. It connects with what I was saying about Tony Gray and like how he's the engineer of his own destruction, and this kind of like solidifies that. Not solidifies that because we got to see a lot more, but is part of the instrument because all the information he's giving to her, Tony Gray gave to him.
Right. Yes. Yeah. About Delicate, and the key part being Delicate Watkins not being happy with Royce. That was which was vital. We get to Kima McNulty. So McNulty still being McNulty says, Daniel says, got to know that we're right, and so on. And Kima basically says it doesn't matter with you because all he sees is you at this point. And she in essence gives him the ideal to go over Daniels' head by going to Colvin. So she puts that into his. She definitely puts that into his head, and from that standpoint. So we'll see what that leads to. What were your thoughts?
Yeah, so this is the one that I thought you were going to talk about more in terms of like, is Kima with McNulty and not? And so I when I was watching the scene, I was thinking about
absolutely, it. Yeah, no, this is a McNulty, like this is the part to me in this scene where she.
Yeah, this is what I thought you were going to refer to.
Absolutely, yes, no question, no question.
Yeah. So then now I'm presenting a counter argument because I do not believe that at all. Here's what I do believe. I do believe Keena's on the hunt. And in order, like she knows, like she was the one doing the work on Marlo.
Yes.
So she knows this is significant. She's not on Daniel's side or McNulty's side on this. She's on the hunt right now. And the best way to get the hunt going is even one better than McNulty ever could figure out. Stop sticking your nose into things and then telling people to keep your name out of it and just don't stick your nose in it. So Kima's on the hunt, and she knows that McNulty doesn't even need any nudging on this. All she has to do is just bring it up, and then he'll be off to the races on his own on this.
So yeah, that's a great point. I also will say this. So we've seen in 2 out of the last 3 episodes, McNulty has, because of you mentioned earlier about the tunnel vision, he has so much tunnel vision to string a bell. he doesn't even realize that he's being used because he's been used twice. So Kima's using him from the standpoint of furthering the investigation and being on the hunt. Lester used him a couple episodes ago when he said, "Well, you police, right? Go, let's see if you can dig some more up on Stringer." So both Kima and Lester use McNulty's tunnel vision. Really, I'm not gonna say kind of against him to further their own. They don't have a personal stake, but they're still police, and they still part of them.
Yeah, they very much do have a personal stake, because they're doing the jobs that they're supposed to do. Another important scene, not important scene, but another thing that happened at the bar was, and this is also again what separates Kima from McNulty, like very, very on a very moral fiber level, which is why they can't. That like the two, like they're not running buddies. She says, you know what's so hard about being police? And he goes, yeah, telling your wife why she has to get vaccinations for your kidney infection, something crass, crude like that. Yeah. And Kima goes, no, it's trying to make the job mean something.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm talking about. McNulty's petty personal. Kima's trying to make this job mean something for her.
Yes.
And ultimately mean something, make it mean something. So that's the difference between those two.
You have Royce Burrell and, of course, Royce's chief of staff. They criticize Burrell about the murder rate. And he basically he flat out tells Burrell, I don't see justification for a full term for you. You promised me 275. We're already at 260. We're already at 260. And now everybody is feeling the crunch, and Burrell in particular is now feeling the heat because of all of these murders. With Burrell, with Colvin. I forgot to mention a phone call between Colvin and Ross after the two guys got killed. The two Barksdales were killed at the feet of Marlowe. You had Cole, you had Rawls basically saying you don't have anything. Colvin says, we're looking into it and so on and so on. And that's when that's of course the scene where he went and asked for Herc information. Herc didn't have shit. So everybody's feeling the crunch, trickling down of the murder rate and how many murders are going, how many murders are being committed. And Burrell, of course, is at the top of that because he is the police commissioner and is on somebody else's terms. It's not he could be taken out at any time from a standpoint of being replaced. What were your thoughts on that scene?
Sure can. I don't have anything to add. Nothing to add. That's exactly what the scene was about.
You have McNulty and Colvin. So this is when McNulty tries to convince Colvin to go to the bosses above him and going above. Of course, Daniels' head says, look, you're going to have a war between Marlowe and Barksdale. And of course, McNulty wants him to go to the higher ups. And McNulty, and by the way, McNulty's not wrong from the standpoint of the information saying that there's going to be a war between Marlowe and Barksdale, because that is happening, is going to happen. So he's right from that standpoint. But we know what his
he didn't do anything. He didn't do anything to gain that information. He didn't do anything to gain the information, so he doesn't get to be right. When you don't do anything to gain the information, he's just using hearsay.
Yeah, no,
of course, coming from Kima, he trusts it, but still, he's just using hearsay because he wants to further his objective.
Oh, yeah, no question.
He doesn't get to be right. Now, if Kima would have said that, absolutely, but he doesn't get to be right. But to Kima's point, to the show's point, to everything, if she goes and does it, nobody takes her seriously. That's ultimately what the show is trying to say. So, anyways, no, he doesn't get to be right though.
Hold on, now get back to
He didn't earn it. He didn't earn it.
Explain that. You said you said now if she tells Coben nobody takes her seriously, why would they take McNulty serious versus taking her serious?
Because she's a woman in the police department, Surreal, dude. Like it's subtle. It's not. The reason I'm not banging on it is because it's not the biggest point that they're trying to make. The show is trying to make in that, but that is there. Obviously, that's there. A white man has a better chance than a woman of color of getting people's attention. Come on now.
Yeah. Yep.
Yep.
Avon, Cuddy, and Slim. So they come back with information that they killed one of Barksdale's, not Barksdale's, but one of Marlowe's corner boys. Avon is semi pleased. Of course, he wanted both of them dead, but he's semi pleased. Says, that's one less, motherfucker breathing than there was yesterday. Says, but he criticizes Cuddy for letting the other guy go. And then, says, shit, hey, he's surprised shit didn't used to get by you back in the day. And then you see Slim try to defend Cuddy. But Cuddy just comes out and says, look, I couldn't do it. Like, whatever it is that make you do what you do and flow how you flow is not in me no more. And he wants out. Avon tries to talk him into just, not being in the trenches, but being kind of using him for his mind. And he makes it clear that no, it's all of this is done. I'm done. I'm finished. And Avon lets him go. Says, hey, we're good. Daps him up and hugs him, and Cuddy walks out. And you see Slim Charles says, he was a man back in his day, and Avon's, kind of stops Slim Charles and says, no, he's a man. He's a man today. Says he's a man today. And we see that scene wrap up. What were your thoughts?
Okay. I'm going to try. So a lot of thoughts. So I'm going to try to summarize. I'm going to try to streamline it as much as possible. This episode, I adore. It is my favorite episode by far up to this point. I do have to remember season 4 is coming. I do have to remember that. This episode, but it doesn't even matter. This episode is a fantastic episode. It doesn't even matter. I mean, like and it legitimately has 3 top 10 scenes in it, and this is one of them. And this is one I think I can make a great argument for Bunny and grandmother talking, but I'm not going to probably convince the masses on that. I don't have to make a strong argument for this one. This is one that people easily and readily identify, this moment right here. And so Omar Bunk, Bunny, Grandma, and then Slim Charles, Avon, and Cuddy. Just 3 fantastic scenes. Okay, so let me streamline. I said I was going to try to streamline and do a good job. All right, so the reason why the scene is so powerful is because it extends to the Omar Bunk scene, leads into this scene. So the power of that scene were 2 men having a conversation standing on opposite sides, and each one giving the rationale for why they exist and what their purpose is in that existence. So that's part 1. This is an extended conversation of that, which is legitimately the question that initially starts off and is being asked throughout this is, how do you change? And is change good? And can change be for the benefit? Here's what I'll say right now. it will be touch and go on pretty much every single thing that is brought up for reform in this show. You make your own choices, you make your own judgments as the viewers, but there will be no argument. It will be touch and go, meaning there's not going to be solid ground. What Cuddy starts to form here is the answer, the antidote that this show is presenting, if you want to look at it that way. If you don't, then he's just another convict that is trying to do something. If you do look at him as the antidote, then it becomes very clear what this show is offering as a solution to the societal ills that they have presented out. The last thing that I'll say is that Slim Charles says, man, he used to be the man. And Avon Barksdale, the character Avon Barksdale, the show The Wire, stripped themselves just kind of down and out of just like the intellectual heavy space that they want to be, and just needed to give that moment. And that's what I love about it, where Avon goes, nah, he's a man right now for that. Like, there's so much death and despair that will happen, that has happened in this show, and will continue to happen in this show. But I really appreciate them for giving that moment, because it needed to be Avon who said that, because it gives permission to other little black and brown boys, or whoever, big black and brown men who are watching this and going, oh, I love drugs, I love the drug game, I love everything, like all those different aspects of it, which are absolutely intriguing and a part of television and a part of entertainment, but also for them to have the ability and the self-reflection to be like, you know what, you just need a moment like this. I really appreciate that. So that's it.
I think Avon. I think Avon knows who this guy is from a standpoint of, look, he knows what type of work this guy did back in the day. So it's not so much questioning.
Deeper. This one's deep.
I think we saw this. Listen, episode 1, Avon told Weebay, I think the joint might have broke him. So Avon.
But when he was saying that, see, no. That's why I need you to differentiate. That's why I need anybody to differentiate. When he was saying that, at that point in time, he was being dismissive of him. When he says, no, he's a man today, he's uplifting him. That is a commitment of the highest order, right? Because what do we always like? There were unwritten rules that we know as a society about the crime game because of people who have informed. And so one of the written rules is that when you're in, and there's only one way out.
Right.
So that moment's meant to be powerful, and it's meant to go way deeper than he knows the type of person that he is, because it doesn't matter the type of person that you are. You still don't get to walk out that door, no matter how tough you were. So the fact that he stood there and not only was like, it's all good, but then let him out says, again, I can't say this enough, and this is what people need. Like, it has to be, Cuddy is the antidote. The world is shit. Baltimore is shit. That's what they're saying. What happens with Cuddy from this point on is the antidote. Pay attention. The show's telling us something. Pay attention.
Yeah,
I told you it was deep. That's why I texted you. It's deep. It's deep. Pay attention. And it means everything to the times we're in right now. Cuddy's the antidote. Think about, I'm just talking to you right now, Real. Think about everything that's going to happen to Cuddy from this moment on, and what he's going to do, and how often he comes back to Avon. And what does Avon see in him? Not an old gangster. What does Avon see in him? That's the antidote. That's what I put to the audience.
Yeah, no, it was definitely a powerful scene. Really just acting with Chad Coleman and Wood Harris definitely did their things in this particular scene. Because Avon, Avon is hard, to let somebody like walk away like that. That's not something that you don't see. And it was hard to, even when it happened at the time, I didn't believe that Avon, and we've seen some humane sides of Avon. We've seen it with the family, with D'Angelo. We've seen some, I ain't gonna say gentle moments, but we've seen some moments of humanity from Avon, but I definitely didn't expect, he's losing the war right now against Marlowe, doesn't have good people around him that he can trust as far as in terms of being quality people in his organization. So it took a lot to allow him to let Cuddy just walk away like that. Themes we talked about, family feuds. We see it within the Barksdales. We see it within the major case unit. We even, I can make a case that we even see it even with Bunny and the Western officers a little bit. We'll see more of that coming on. Community, we discussed that in regards to, in particular, the Bunk and Omar scene in regards to that. Who was your MVP of the episode?
So my MVP is Cuddy.
Okay. Yep, I can see that. I had Avon. I had Avon as the MVP. I thought that his presence was felt even in scenes that he wasn't in, with him, escalating this war between Marlowe. You see the pressures to bring the murder rate down. You see Burrell feel that pressure. You see what's happening, with Stringer and the real estate thing. But yeah, I thought that Avon felt throughout the course of this entire episode, and he was just great in all the scenes that he was in, to be honest with you. I had him as MVP. Sardine Award.
Sardine goes to Bunk.
I had Omar Bunk, but yeah, if you had to pick one of those two, it would have been Bunk. But I had that scene as I had that scene in general as the Sardine Award.
Yep.
So,
Yep.
So we were definitely on the same page from that standpoint. So 6 episodes down, halfway through season 3. It is. It only gets better. It only gets better from here. It only gets better from here. Again, there's a tremendous episode, very powerful episode, and
love this episode. Can't say enough about this episode.
Looking forward to episode 7, which is titled Slapstick. As always, thanks to Rob Sapp for joining the program. I will see you next time.
All right.
That's going to wrap it up for this latest edition of the Real Deal Podcast, The Wire Remix. Of course, you can subscribe to my YouTube channel, www.youtube.com/C/Real Deal Podcast. I will see you next time. Matter of fact, I will be on Tuesday for talking about the NFL and also a host of other things on the next edition of the Real Deal Podcast. Have a great rest of the evening. I'm out.